Hello, everyone, and welcome to fall 2021 and to personality. I wanted to at least get this quick video sort of put together to welcome you, to introduce myself, to talk a bit about where we're going with the course and what to expect in that, but also a lot to actually just kind of focus on just the practical issues here on the front end. I know I say to classes often at this time of the year, it's like, I know you're being syllabused to death. Not only is it just like stacks of syllabi that are increasingly like absurd in their what they're trying to cover and everything like that, but it's just easy to get lost in all of that minutia and all these different Canvas courses that are similar enough that they work kind of alike, but different enough that it confuses the out of you, that sort of thing. And so I want to try to just go through sort of the meat and potatoes of what to anticipate as far as the what are the expectations of the course, what's going to happen and when, how's it going to work, where do the points come from, all the important stuff to hopefully make that a bit more clear, to maybe obviate some of the questions and things that are going to come up as you're going through those materials and whatnot. So we'll give it a shot. And just kind of on that note, I'll mention too that I'll be sending out more videos along the way. Sometimes video, sometimes like an audio message, something like that. I've found it to be a little, it's kind of more efficient in terms of kind of answering questions or covering important topics, whatever the case may be. In lieu of like writing out a big long email with like multiple paragraphs that you've just got to like slog through and try to figure out like what you need to pull out that's important and try to somehow stay awake through that process. If you've ever received any of my emails, you know what I'm talking about. I like to talk a lot. So, anyway, at least with these videos, I've been getting good feedback from folks in my classes that I think it seems to be kind of helpful that instead of slogging through a big long dense email, you can kind of open the file, turn on the video, do whatever, or sort of put groceries away and just listen to me ramble on. Then you can sort of extract whatever's important, relevant, that you need. So anyway, we'll see what you think as we move along. It's proven to be a kind of helpful way. So with that said, hello. I'm going to be sort of steering our ship for the term. I'm Christopher Collins. I live up in Portland, actually, with my little family. I've got boy, girl, 5-year olds, which the interpretation is I have two completely insane animals that hopefully shouldn't really impact anything to do with where you and I interface, but just know that if I'm like a little behind on something, I'm not getting on an email right away, or I'm whatever, it's probably their damn fault. I've usually got at least one, if not two, primates crawling on me and just beating the hell out of me at any given time. So there you have it. My area is actually more behavioral neuroscience and comparative animal behavior. So actually, typically my courses would be like brain and behavior, physiology, statistics, research methods, animal learning and behavior, things sort of like that. So a course like this is actually really kind of fun because this is outside of my usual area. The more, if you it's not appropriate to say maybe the more sciencey side, but on this end it gets a little more philosophical, a little more theoretical, which makes for very interesting conversation. It makes for some very interesting ideas. That's the sort of thing we're going to be doing in here over the coming weeks, months, going forward. So I'm excited because these things are fascinating. They're fun to talk about, and as we start getting into some of, how is this course going to go? What are the expectations? What are we going to emphasize? That sort of a thing. You'll see that, for instance, a lot of it does go into like the discussion forums and places where we can not just take the ideas, read them, make sure you know what the boldface terms mean and that kind of a thing, but we can actually converse insofar as a group can in an asynchronous online format and what have you. But we'll get there in a moment. So hopefully this is day one. Today is Wednesday the 22nd. So hopefully by the time you're seeing this, you'll have already been into the course a bit, kind of navigated around inside of Canvas, saw what the resources are that are available, found the syllabus, the schedule, some of those things. As promised, I just want to, I guess, speak to some of the more germane components of that to make clear what they are, how they work, all of that. And so, number one, I guess a good place to start is hopefully you did find our textbook listed. It is, I mean, it's required in the sense that if you don't have the book, it's gonna be rough. So if you have questions about the book or about editions of the book, anything like that, just you know where to find me. Let me know about that. The structure of the course is sort of your typical, even though we're doing this awkward 0 week starting in a Wednesday. I guess to my way of thinking that it's kind of nice to have a buffer, couple few days on the front end where it's a little lower pressure. We're allowed to just kind of get all of our ducks in a row and get things figured out. But outside of that, it will be your sort of usual sort of 10-week term with an 11th week finals structure. That's how our Canvas shell is organized. As you're looking at that schedule and you're looking at how things are allocated, you'll see that we do have weekly work that we'll be doing. So I'll talk in a minute about the quizzes, I'll talk about the discussion forums in some more depth, but right at the front end, let me try to address this and then I'll sort of revisit it probably as we get on the tail end of talking about those things. But if you've been here at OSU in the past, well, probably most schools. I mean, we're all at this spot now in the midst of this pandemic, still the midst, and we've all adapted. We've all had to kind of evolve and find ways to work. And one of the big ways that most of us have done that in these courses is to be far more accommodating, far more flexible than might have usually been the case. And that's certainly going to be true in here and throughout this term. I say that here because here in a moment when I'm telling you about the quizzes, I'm telling you about the discussion forums, we're going to have due dates, right? And like so many other courses, like a lot of those due dates are there 11:59 p.m. on the Sunday of the week and that sort of a thing. We're going to keep those. They're there, they're listed, they're on the assignments and on all of those things. But do know that we are going to still have some malleability with that. So let's start with the discussion forums and talk a bit about those, and I'll start to give you an indication of what I mean. So discussion forums, there really are only opportunity in an online environment like this to really interact and engage in anything that resembles conversation and that sort of thing. There are a lot, at least in relation to my other courses that I do, there are a lot of discussions in this course, and those are largely for the reasons that I kind of already initially had mentioned towards the beginning. These are big ideas, and they're maybe less rigorous sometimes, right, than we find in neuroscience and some of the other fields where I work. So there's a lot more to discuss and a lot more to talk about. There are going to be a couple of discussions as we're going through each week, and you'll see you're asked to come and sort of make your initial post early, and then come back, revisit those conversations, and respond to others, engage in the posts that they made, respond to people who have had comments about your initial post, and this sort of a thing. And as is frequently the case with discussion forums, they're meant to be very open-ended, very free form, in terms of what direction you want to take them, what you want to say about sort of the question or the idea that's being posed. They're going to look like a lot of different things along the way. Sometimes they'll be just as straightforward as, hey, we just got done reading about this theorist, this big idea, something like that. Can you relate that to yourself or about relationships that you're experiencing in adulthood? Or other times it'll be, okay, we just got done talking about these ideas. Now here's a couple of videos that demonstrate the kinds of things that we're talking about, check those out and respond to those. Others, for instance, will be, there's countless versions out there of things that purport to measure personality, right? Most people have heard of handfuls of these different ways of trying to categorize, quantify, or otherwise describe personality and personality characteristics. So sometimes you're going to be engaged directly in some of those and speaking to your experience, your interpretation, etc. So the discussion forums will be they will vary tremendously depending on the kind of content that we're going through and that sort of thing. When I talk about sort of the point factor of earning the points for each of those weeks, clearly that there's going to be very different expectations in relation to the kind of post that it is, the kind of whatever's involved with it. But almost without exception, they're not going to be phrased in a way in which you have a wrong answer. I really am asking for you to bring your perspective, your experience, your way of thinking and how it relates and these sorts of things. So that is to say, there isn't going to be any discussion forum where I go in and it's like the answer is X, Y, and Z, so you damn well better have put X, Y, and Z. It's way more open-ended. So that is a way to come around to kind of indicate the only then way to really get it wrong. The only way you can not get a post correct is, number one, you just don't do it. Or number two, you're not engaging it in any way that's sort of clear. One of the more obvious ways is if it's just, sometimes it's not enough to put a sentence or two sentences that says, yes, I took the Big Five personality and this is what it listed for me. When the question asks you to go on and interpret it, speak to it, and that sort of a thing. So the only wrong answers are essentially those that you're not sufficiently addressing the question that was posed, or you're not coming back and engaging, because it is a discussion, right? So if you're not engaging anybody else, responding to their posts or responding to their comments and things on your post, then that's not really a discussion. So that's just to say, take it whatever direction you want. I'm excited because it's so much more interesting to hear what you have to think and how it relates to things and to have that kind of a conversation than just trying to throw a few facts up there, hope you get it right, and then have points contention on that. So for what it's worth. Now, what I had said about the due dates, this is something let's touch on these as they relate to the discussion forums. There's a rational range in which there can be this flexibility. And what I'm trying to get at with that is everybody's going to have things come up in their life. There's going to be illnesses, there's going to be family emergencies, there's going to be this, that, and the other thing. That's why this flexibility is in place. So if you can't get week 5's discussion forum wrapped up by that 11:59 that Sunday night, that is not a big deal. It's nothing you need to stress about, and you don't need to force it to make sure that you get something that piddles in under the radar of that time. That's not what any of us wants here. So you can do it the next day on the Monday, even do it a few days later into the week. You're not going to lose any points. You're not going to lose anything. It's perfectly fine. With that being said, and this is from experience, I have to explain this, the rational window in which participation in something like a discussion forum tapers off over time. And so, just for instance, I have students who have things happening, sure, and that's all legitimate, but we make our way weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and now we're almost to finals week, and they're going back and trying to participate in discussion forums from week 2 and week 3, when nobody has visited that discussion forum for literally months, and we haven't talked about those ideas in weeks and months. There's a range where it does not make any sense to go back and still get credit and engage in a conversation that everybody else moved on from a couple months ago. So, for what it's worth, if that's, I hope that it makes intuitive sense, right? But if you find yourself in a position where you're like, well, I don't quite know what that means. What about this? What about that? Well, just reach out. Let me know. Of course, I will push you in the right direction, I assure you. So, okay, those are discussion forums. Let's relate it now to quizzes. Quizzes are also weekly. The quizzes are set up in Canvas. They relate to the information, of course, that we're covering during that specific chunk of time, that week. They're pulled directly right out of information from the text and what we're covering and the stuff that we're talking about. They're open book, they're open note, they're open Google, they're open your best friend or your uncle or whatever the hell you want. It's all yours. Carte blanche, go crazy. You can do these quizzes, and that's perfectly acceptable. In terms of due dates, once again, you're going to find that there are due dates listed. They should be done by the Sunday night, 11:59, blah, 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 blah. The quizzes aren't the same as the discussions, right? The discussion kind of assumes that we're all, even if we're not fully synchronous, we're all kind of passing through the same part of the path at the same time. That makes it hard to go back and revisit. The quizzes, you genuinely can do anytime you want to. Now, there's a practical component to this in which you're not going to do yourself any favors by putting off all the quizzes till the end of the term, panicking and trying to get them done after not thinking about this stuff for weeks and months and stuff like that. It's kind of nice to work on them and get the feedback and stuff like that too prior to the exams that are going to cover that same info. But just because it's true, you can do the quizzes right up until the last damn hour of the term, and the points will still go in, and you get them. There's no deductions or anything like that. So you're all adults, right? You're in higher education. You know what this is all about. So I leave it to you to make those calls about how you approach that. But just know that that's the state of affairs as far as that's concerned. So those are discussion forums. Those are the quizzes. Splendid. Let's get to the real fun stuff. Exams. Yay. Of course, we have exams. And the exams, unlike the quizzes, are closed note, closed book, closed internet, all of that. They are proctored. And so overwhelmingly likely that you have already dealt with the proctoring situation. But if you are one of the people that transferred, or you just haven't had proctoring, or whatever the case may be, we use a program called Proctorio. It's nice because it's free, but it does come with a few caveats. If you've not used Proctorio, I powerfully suggest taking a little bit of time to read through it. Not only are there descriptions about what it is, how it works, all these different things, but there are links where you can, go to get signed up. You can test to make sure that the things function and work all right on your machines. It has idiosyncrasies. I think, as far as I know, it still only works with Chrome as a browser. So anyway, if you've done Proctorio, it works on your machine. You're all good. Blah blah blah. Great. If you're unsure, it's worth looking into it now. Unlike so many situations, again, that arise where people don't really look into it until, I want to take the exam now, and then things go awry and I'm getting panicked calls and emails and the whole world's on fire and that sort of a thing. So take a look at it now if you can. The midterms, if you've seen on the syllabus, so we have the quote-unquote 2 midterms, even though neither falls at the midpoint of the term. But the way it's divvied out, be the first 4 weeks we'll encounter the first midterm covering that first section of the course. And do be looking, it comes up quickly in this class on the schedule. I'll be in touch about that as we move forward. It's exclusively multiple choice. It is like the quizzes. It pulls directly from a test bank that comes from the textbook and from all the stuff that we cover, that's in the lectures, that's in the all of that. There shouldn't be any surprises on those. And what else do I want to say about them? They're your typical about 40 to 50 multiple choice style questions. For some of you, that means it'll take you less than 20 minutes. For some of you, you'll take the full allotted amount of time, which we basically just leave at functional infinity. There isn't really a cap that anybody should be running into as far as taking those. So week 4, week 8, those will be distributed as we were making our way through, covering the content of what was in those individual sections. The last one, there is a final. This sounds terrifying, so just bear with these next few seconds and then we'll come back. There's a final, and it is an essay final. And half of you just dropped the course. For the other half of you, it's not remotely as intimidating as it sounds. This essay final is going to be basically just 2 reasonably short length essay questions that are going to ask very specifically about major theorists, major figures, people that we end up going through in this course. We're going to spend a lot of time, we're going to talk about Freud and Rogers and Skinner and Horney and Allport and Adler and like all these people and their contributions and all of that. The final will ask you about 2 of them. And again, I promise we will absolutely spend a bunch more time with this down the road as it comes closer, but just trying to assuage some of your anxiety maybe around this now. There are documents, they're already in the modules. If you scroll down to the bottom, you can find them. They are just brief documents that give exactly information about every one of these people. So the handful that it could ask about, there's a whole list right there at the bottom, the document that says, here's where they came from, here's the time they lived in, here's some of what they experienced and what was happening at the time, and then just a little bit more about like how did their ideas develop? Where did they come from? How did they fit into the zeitgeist of the time and some of that? That's what this final is going to be asking about. So, we'll talk about it later, but at least for right now, just understand that as we make our way through the term, this thing is sitting out there at the end that seems so intimidating. It's truly not. I promise you, every person who's ever had the class gets done with it, and it's like, that really was not bad at all. Easy for me to say on this end, right? Okay. Quizzes, discussion, midterms, final, proctoring issues. Functionally, I feel like that's probably enough at this point. How long have I been talking at you? Yeah, over 20 minutes. So probably a good time for me to lay off and let you be. Going forward, just a few things so about the course. My experience is that there's an incredible amount of variability in folks who take these classes. And so on sort of one end of the spectrum are folks who are pretty much exclusively online students. You're like way cozy and accustomed to this. You know how to do this better than I do. And it fits into your schedule and all that. And often with a lot of those students, for instance, you and I may or may not have any direct contact whatsoever. Some students, they just show up, they do the work that they need to do, they get the stuff in, they good to go, and that's it. We don't even ever really have any encounters with each other. It's weird to a person who doesn't do online usually, but it's perfectly fine. That being said, there are folks on the other end of the spectrum who are maybe more accustomed to face-to-face learning, or are the type of person that gets way more out of conversations and back and forth and interaction and guidance and feedback and these sorts of things. And I guess I put out there for what it's worth, like that's what I'm here for. And so even though we're doing this weird digital online asynchronous thing, I'm going to be trying to engage as much as I possibly can with time and with everything else, finding you in the discussion forums and on various things to interact, give feedback, whatever that is. But just know, I don't technically have any official office hours, but I'm always around. If you're emailing, I'm going to be on top of my email as quickly as is humanly possible. If you want to go over anything, if you have questions, if you want to whatever, let me know. I'm always here for phone conversations. I'm always here for Zoom meetings or whatever the case may be. So don't be bashful if there's some way I can be of help. I'm not just here to torture you. It just feels that way. I'm actually here to help hopefully succeed and get the material and just have a successful experience, whatever that means. Okay, I need to shut up. I've kept you here long enough. I'm excited to work with you all this term. I hope that this finds you healthy and doing well, surviving the first week of all of this, and we'll just be in touch as we start making our way forward. So take care, and we'll talk soon. All right, cheers.